Yes, guys, how you doing? Welcome back to the Spurs Talk Show. I am Sean Butler. Bugsy Malone is otherwise engaged. I hope you don't mind it just being me today. But I do hope you are all happy and healthy, doing the things you love with the people that you love doing them with. Please do me a favor, guys, as you always do. And you know how unbelievably important it is. And I very much appreciate all the support you show by hitting the like button on the video if you enjoy the content. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. And even if you have, especially right now, can you double check that you still are? Over the last couple of days, 70 or 80 subscribers have just fallen off of the subscriber count. Not sure why. Hit the notification bell and drop a comment. Let me know your thoughts on today's topics. And we've got sort of two bits of news, right? The first one is a transfer news, views, and clues. And it's an interesting article, and it's written by an outlet that I actually have a lot of time and respect for. I love watching their videos on YouTube, and I always grew up reading their magazine. I'm not entirely sure if you would call them a journalist who would break news. So I'm not entirely sure where they get this particular source or story from, but it's one that's quite exciting. And so I thought I would share it with you. Let me know your thoughts as we go through it. And guys, it is from 442 magazine, 442, the article, the website these days. It says Tottenham Hotspur are tipped to sign £100 million striker who has already rattled Arsenal fans. Tottenham Hotspur are in for a professional Guna beta capable of taking them to a new level in front of goal. Tottenham Hotspur could pull off a huge striker deal, signing a player who's already wound up Arsenal fans down the road. The Lily Whites are yet to replace talismanic all-time scorer Harry Kane with a direct replacement, bringing in Brennan Johnson and Manuel Solomon as options in attack, with James Maddison replicating his England colleague Kane's ability to playmake. Ange Postecoglou's side have managed to create plenty of chances and score plenty of goals as a result. Though the Australian hasn't missed Kane too badly, with both Son Heung-min and Richarlison performing well up front, it's likely Tottenham's return for a conventional centre-forward this summer will happen. And here it goes. Various outlets have tipped Spurs to enter the market this summer for Brentford frontman Ivan Toney, with The Athletic claiming that Toney is a player Tottenham would potentially have been interested in signing last summer, but for his ban is about as close as it gets to guaranteed goals in the Premier League. With Team Talk relaying that Toney's agency, CAA Stellar Sports, have worked closely with Spurs chairman Daniel Levy. Not only would the move be a serious statement from a club who have more money to spend this summer, Toney's history of winding up Spurs' rival would make the move even sweeter. After beating Arsenal 2-0 in Brentford's first ever Premier League fixture in 2021, the England striker tweeted, nice kickabout with the boys, sparking upset not just from the Gunners on the internet, but from Gunners manager Mikel Arteta himself, who used the tweet as motivation, didn't know this, to avenge the defeat during his Team Talk before the return fixture, as seen in Amazon's All or Nothing documentary. That's hilarious, how sensitive and rattled that man can get. Bees boss Thomas Frank has admitted that Toney will likely depart the G-Tech Community Stadium imminently, claiming it's relatively obvious that Ivan Toney will probably be sold this summer, with the West Londoners previously demanding £100 million for the sale. The Northampton-born striker is valued at around £35 million via transfer market. So look, in all honesty, this article is obviously conflating a few different stories from The Athletic. There are someone that you take more seriously in terms of their journalistic integrity and their ability to source out good information. Team Talk, maybe not so much, but the story itself, for me, look, I think there's a couple of bits in there that leave a little bit to desire. First and foremost, £100 million for a sale previously was the demand. I don't think they're going to get anything like that in this particular climate, and also with the fact that he now only has 12 months left on his contract. Let's take a little look-see at Ivan Toney's situation. Well, look, it's interesting, right? He came through the Northampton Youth Academy back in 2013 and was immediately sold to Newcastle a couple of years later for 360k. After a series of loans to Barnsley, to Shrewsbury, to Scunthorpe, to Wigan, and back to Scunthorpe again, he eventually was sold by Newcastle for about the same amount of money, 390,000 euros, to Peterborough. Peterborough then took him on for a couple of years and sold him for $5.5 million, give or take, to Brentford, where he has been ever since. His contract is up, guys, in the summer 2025, which obviously does put a massive dampener on his market valuation. And I think the market valuation that is reflected by Transfer Market is a little bit low, but it will be similar to a Harry Kane kind of drama this year. They'll be trying to get maximum revenue, maximum value for the player that absolutely does deliver goals. However, before we look at his goals, I just want to kind of talk a little bit about the article from Team Talk talking about CAA Stellar. Look, CAA is the creative arts agency. They are an agency that is based out of Los Angeles. I remember Hollywood Hotspur, one of the channel members, educated me a little bit on the history of CAA a long time ago. They obviously look after all of the celebs, all of the kind of music, the Hollywood, all that stuff, and obviously they've moved into sports, and they buy up a lot of these different kind of smaller agencies and then tag them onto the name. So CAA Stellar would have once upon a time been called Stellar. CAA Base is another one that would have once upon a time, I'm guessing, be called Base. Now, when Team Talk say that CAA Stellar has a relationship with Daniel Levy, I'm not sure if that may be true. It might very well be true. I'm not saying it isn't true, but when I've done videos in the past regarding Tottenham's pursuit of players that belong to a certain agency, it's very much more around CAA Base being the agency that has a lot of Tottenham players represented, and increasingly more and more players that join the club that are represented by other agencies end up signing for CAA Base. And I'm not sure, just because you have CAA, the Creative Artists Agency, in front of the name, I'm not entirely sure they overlap. I could be wrong. And if anyone does know, then please let me know in the comments. Some of these videos that I do are very much about education, or to my own for my own purposes as much as anything else. Here is the list, guys, for what it's worth, of CAA Stellar agencies ranked by market valuation. And if Tottenham do have a relationship with any of these guys, then there's obviously a few players here that would be suitable for Tottenham. Morgan Gibbs-White, for example, is a player that Tottenham we as fans have been talking a lot about this year. Jack Grealish, a player that there's a lot of speculation right now regarding whether or not his time at Manchester City has come to an end. He's been dropped for the last couple of games, and whether or not he, will be replaced by, some of the up and coming players that are coming through for Manchester City, and maybe they'll look to cash in and get some value back on him. Would he suit at Tottenham? Would you like him at Tottenham? He is the one that got away all those years ago, and a lot of people that are in the Levy out camp remind me every single day about the fact that Jack Grealish could have been a Tottenham player if it wasn't for Daniel Levy haggling over 5 million. My answer to them is always the same. It wasn't just Daniel Levy that didn't see the 25 million pound valuation that Aston Villa had on Jack Grealish's head at the time. It was every single chairman in world football. He didn't leave at that particular point in time. So it wasn't just Tottenham that missed the boat. Everyone did. And of course, you have to at some point place a valuation that you think is reasonable on the player. With the benefit of hindsight, we of course know that Jack Grealish was the one that got away. Other players that are the CAA Stellar have got a lot of very, very interesting players here. But as I say, Ivan Toney is the subject of the conversation today. I've never heard this relationship between CAA Stellar before and Tottenham Hotspur. Maybe someone might be able to educate me, but I've always thought of it as CAA Base, where a lot of Tottenham's current stars operate. And the fact that CAA are the overarching umbrella, I don't think that's necessarily something that's meaningful. CAA are involved. They're one of the biggest agencies in the world. And so there's lots and lots of different sports agencies that fall under that banner. In terms of Ivan Toney, his detailed stats, guys, look, I think the article does absolutely nail on the head when it says that he's as close to you get for guaranteed goals in the Premier League as you can imagine. Here we have his overall stats over the last since he moved in 2018, when the Premier League, when Brentford moved into the Premier League in 2021 season. In the first season he was here, 33 games played, 12 goals and 5 assists, 17 in 33, almost a goal or assist every other game. Obviously the same sort of ratio in the EFL Cup that year and the FA Cup that year. And then obviously last year he got 20 goals and 4 assists in 33 games. And then obviously he missed a lot of those. He obviously hasn't played at all this season, and he missed the tail end of last season through his ban. But since he's come back, he's right back on tune. 3 games played, 2 goals scored in only 270 minutes. I say only 270 minutes. That is, of course, 90 minutes in each game. If you look at his overall stats, guys, over his entire career, 91 goals or assists for Brentford in 126 games played across various different levels of competition. At Peterborough, 64 goals or assists in 94 games. This is a 2-in-3 ratio, and the sort of ratio that you love to see from a striker. And look, for me, guys, this guy is the real deal. Of course, you would love Ivan Toney at Tottenham Hotspur. He not only can he score goals, he's wonderful in the air. He's a real threat with his both feet. He can score. He's got pace. He's got kind of that S-housery that we like. He doesn't mind winding players up. He is an unbelievable talent. However, what I would say, guys, before anyone says that I'm gonna only paint one side of the picture, you have to bake in two sort of realistic factors here. One is he's obviously got that kind of what do you call it, baggage behind him with regards his gambling. Is that stuff a thing of the past? You know, as someone who knows people, it might be me myself, who I would argue have battled some levels of not addiction, but some levels of temptation having a hold over you at times. I know how difficult it is to turn your head and move in a completely different direction from those sorts of things entirely. Has Ivan Toney got that stuff behind him? Time will tell. Has it affected his football in any way since he's been going through it? Obviously not. Although maybe you could argue, if it has affected his football, then what sort of level of player could he be if he could really kind of get that monkey off his back, so to speak? And the other thing, though, I think the more important thing than the gambling stuff for me, the other consideration here is his personality. From what I've heard of him, and I think that all players need a little slice of this in their character if they are going to be the very, very best players out there. But he's a real ego maniac. He very much makes it all about himself. If you saw the interviews that he conducted before he came back to Brentford and everything else, he's always come across to me as someone who is, you know, unipolar, focused about himself. He makes everything about himself. He loves the attention. He loves the spotlight being on him for good or bad reasons. And he uses it to his advantage for sure. I'm just not entirely convinced that Ange is the sort of manager who would be on board those sorts of personalities. Now, myself included, but a lot of people that I spend time with in the Tottenham community, we spend a lot of time talking about people like Brennan Johnson and maybe one of his shortcomings. Not to throw him under the bus at all and bring him into the conversation, but he does come across as a very nice guy. And maybe, as I was saying at the start of this particular segment, maybe you just need a little bit more of that bite, that feistiness, that kind of ego, that desire to be soul track minded about yourself in order to reach the very heights that your personal career can reach. I think it's important that Brennan Johnson adds a little part of that side of his game that he doesn't already have or doesn't appear to have right now. But whether or not you want to go as far as the likes of Ivan Toney or someone like Josh Kimmich, we spoke about Joshua Kimmich at Bayern Munich, the kind of, again, very spurious links that emerged towards the end of the window about Josh Kimmich. If there was any interest in him coming in and becoming the six at Tottenham, you know, I massively think that Tottenham are missing someone like him, an enforcer, or just a DM who could sit in that sixth role and just chomp things up, but have the ability to control the tempo of the game, spread the passes. I'd love to see someone like him in. He's one of the best in the world at doing it. But he also, as far as I'm aware, has a bit of a history of being thought of as a bit of an egomaniac. And Ange has said, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I'm paraphrasing it. He said, give me the content of someone's character over the caliber of their quality, of their technical quality all day long. Now, does that mean that he doesn't like people that have got a little bit of an ego? Not necessarily. I think what he was intimating is that he wants people that buy into the cause, that are 100% behind the mission, that will be a little bit selfless in that regard, and that will be absolutely professional, absolutely driven towards the ultimate goal of team success. I don't know enough to sit here and say whether Ivan Toney's ego can cloud that particular vision, whether it would be a little bit of a smudge. It's not a clear line between the two, but it's certainly a concern or a consideration that I think you'd have to trust in Tottenham Hotspur's scouting team and their new kind of recruitment team to be able to figure out. And if the answer on that is that it's not a concern and you'd love to have him, then I think that Tottenham can and should go after Brentford this summer as a team that has more ability to spend the sort of money that it will take to get this over the line than a lot of the other teams around us that are going after Ivan Toney. You know, Arsenal would love to do it, but I think they still will have to sell before they can buy. And maybe in this particular window, maybe if the deal was to drag through until July the 1st, when the FFP year moves into the next year, because they will then have the Champions League revenue from this particular year. Maybe next year they'll be able to get the deal done in July or August of the window. And so maybe if Tottenham wanted to get this done, maybe they would need to make a move and get that done before the end of this financial year and offer something that Brentford can't refuse before June the 30th. Time will tell. I do think that Tottenham can and could and should put him on the short list. That really is a short list, because there really isn't that many sensational number 9s that are out there. Now, some people will say, do we really need a number 9 when you have Sonny and you have Richarlison? Richarlison's banging form. I'm still I'm loving the fact that Richarlison is proving me wrong week in, week out, and I'm so delighted to have seen his commentary earlier on today about the fact that he had there was a stigma attached to the idea of getting therapy, getting help where he comes from, but he's done it anyway and he's found it very helpful and he'll continue to do it. And I really hope that all of those things are stepping stones in the right direction to see the very best of Richarlison for the long term. But I think you have to still wait and see. I still have the things that I'm seeing now of him doesn't change what I felt about him as a player before he got to Tottenham at Everton and Watford. For me personally, I would still love to see a number 9 that's more of an all-round football player in that role, whether it's an Ivan Toney, whether it's Santiago Jimenez, whether it's somebody else. We've still got plenty of time to discuss that. But if Tottenham do like Ivan Toney, if there is any truth to the kind of summary that 442 are putting out here, then I would love it if they do land on the idea that any issues, any considerations about his personality are more than capable, we can cope with them. Then maybe we should put together a package that can tempt the hand of Brentford, because I think that he is the closest thing to a ready-made replacement for Harry Kane that is available, or one of the best, most ready-made replacements, because of his experience in the Premier League, because of his ability to offer us different dynamics in the air and his ability to turn and run at players. He really does tick most of the boxes that you need from a centre forward, and he'd be someone that would be fantastic to come in. That's it from me, guys. Just thought I'd share that with you. Let me know your thoughts on Ivan Toney. As I say, I'm not sure this is a kind of an ITK or any kind of journalistic stuff, but the story was out there and it made me thinking about whether or not it's plausible and feasible and should we be looking at it. Let me know your thoughts, guys. Like, subscribe, and comment. And as always, bye-bye.